anyone's following along and you want to get onto our weekly sessions, we're going to cover all different subjects. Please notify me in the comments down below, and we'll definitely get you on there so that you're notified whenever we jump on. If you don't miss it live and you can't ask the questions, then just message questions through to either myself or Mark through the week, and you can always watch the replay. It'll be uploaded on either of our pages. So let's go. So the motivations and the emotions behind renovating. I guess I'll just start off quickly, Mark. Like, I find that we have the best intentions. We get really excited about the potential of how much we can make when we start renovating to sell, especially. And we get a bit excited and we probably jump the gun a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it sort of comes back to what we were discussing last week with regards to, if you're going to do it, you need to have a really good plan in place.
Yeah.
If you take me, for instance, my abilities as a renovator is I'm more that project manager. You know, I can knock stuff over. I can't build it back up again. And I think a lot of people just go, you know what, let's just start. Now they'll start knocking out walls and they'll start doing things without a really good plan on you know what they're going to do financially, and obviously you know where this knocking this wall out is going to take them. So I think it's again, it's always making sure that you've got something in place to I guess do the right thing when you're doing that reno.
Absolutely, make the plan. And I think it's really get the advice from somebody that's done it before, that knows it. But you know, even if you've got a little bit of an idea, it's always good to, you know, to chat to somebody and just throw some ideas out there, because sometimes you don't see the forest for the trees. And really get to know what are the main things that you need to do. And we're talking about that last week with the overcapitalizing.
And what buyers might like too.
That's right, exactly. That's right. And you know, there's some things that you don't need to do, which creates, you know, that adds to that layer of overwhelm. When you've got all these, you know, jobs to do, you don't have to actually do some of the things. So it's really, I think the most important thing is to have an action plan. Put a plan in place, get your prices, get all that budgeted down. Like, treat it like a job, treat it like it's a project, that you're the project manager, and get your prices on what the lights are going to cost, what's your paint going to cost. Are you going to get a painter in, or do you think you can do it yourself? Like, actually write it down as a plan, and then that keeps you on track too, because it's very easy to get in there, renovate, and you see shiny things. I don't know if you started doing that, Mark. It's like, you know, you start painting this and then you go, oh, I'll jump over to that job and I'll go do that, and just end up running around in circles.
Yeah. I think the other thing is like, it's the costs that people don't consider as well. I remember just little things like when I renovated in a house here in Mildura, as soon as you get a permit to do some renovations, bang, the council slug you with a fee just in case you damage curbing or the truck's down. You know, it's all those little things that you might not have taken into account. So it's really important. And the whole concept behind renovating and doing it, and the reason people do it, other than if they're going to stay there and they want to live in the home, is just to make money. So
absolutely,
it's you know, you've got to cover all costs. If you're knocking out walls, you've got to consider what a plumber, you know, an electrician, you know, these high-level trades, you know, they're not cheap. You know, you've got to consider all those scenarios. So, I think, like I said, plan and then get it right. The other thing is, you know, I speak to a lot of people that live in a home, or they've got tenants in a home. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see from a planning point of view is particularly those that have a tenant in place. They wait for the tenant to vacate. Then they get in there, or we've done it together where we've gone into a home a little bit too late in the scenario. The tenant's out, so financially that constant income has disappeared. So therefore you've got an asset sitting there, it becomes a liability, and you're not getting income into this. You're not going to get an electrician or a plumber or a builder or a painter or anyone else that you were going to rely on to renovate a home in a day or 2 days or 3 days, or not even a week or 2 weeks, not good ones. So I think that's the keys. If you're planning, you know, we spoke about it today, you know, going into a house that's going to be ready in July, we're going to go into it the next week or two to make sure, one, that we've got the appropriate furniture for the home and the appropriate ideas, suggestions from your point of view. I've given you my idea of what I think the buyer's going to work. So yeah, I think, you know, those little things, waiting, you know, you got to think about it from, you know, if you lose that income coming in, and you don't have a plan, sometimes it might be a month before you're actually underway, and that can be crucial and could affect your bottom line.
Absolutely, because it can take 2 weeks to get a quote even sometimes. So definitely plan ahead. So I'll just ask you a question, like, so if someone has got a tenant, what are they able to inspect the property so that they have got an idea? Because sometimes they might think, I don't really need carpets, I only put them in 3 years ago, and then get once the tenants moved out, think, okay, yep.
Yeah. Oh, look, you know, we have to access investment properties all the time. So 95% of the time, tenants are great, you know, and they'll let us come through and they'll let us, do the things. You know, it's hard for them because there's the potential that it might mean that they have to move. But I guess that's the risk for tenants, and for tenants renting, is that, you might not have that security of having to stay there. But I think that's just comes with the territory. So, you know, more often than not, they're fine. You give them a bit of notice, you work with them, you get, those tradies or whoever you think you need to get through to look at the things that you think might need doing and get some advice. So you don't often come up against tenants that aren't willing to work with you. Like I said, most of the time they're good to go.
Yeah, good. That's awesome, because then you can definitely plan, get your quotes, and definitely use your agent or your stylist or whoever your trusted advisor is, to see if they've got their A team in place. Like, I've got, painters and plumbers and electricians that generally don't drop everything, but they'll fit me in as soon as they can. So definitely use your advisor to see if they've got their A team in place, and then you know that they're trusted tradespeople as well.
Andy Whiteleg's probably not watching right now, but he's one of them that knows that when you've got something on our house, he'll make it work, that he can get his guys or himself in to throw up some pendant lights, and so I think that's crucial. You've got to have, everyone's got their own tradies, and you might have your own individual tradies, but you want to get the right people to make sure. If you've got a strict process, like my last renovation, we had a timeline to fit before we had to move in, and it was crucial. You've got to be onto them, and it's if you get one little issue in the road, then it throws everyone else out. So at that particular time, I was sort of project managing, I guess, that whole scenario. But you've got to be onto those tradies and make sure that that they're there on time, or at least understanding that you have got a bit of a system,
a bit of a deadline.
So, a good team, like you said, good team makes a massive difference.
Absolutely. And make sure that they're in on your deadline as well, so that they know your deadline. And I think it's really important to create a realistic deadline as well. Like, don't let people push you into go, okay, let's get the photos done next week. It's not going to happen.
No.
Like, be realistic, and ring around first before you get your deadline. Get a little bit of a ballpark of when things can happen. Put in there a couple of days, because both of us know life gets in the way, right? We've got kids or whatever happens. Make sure you put in a couple of days grace in there, and just be really realistic about it, because if you put yourself under too much pressure, this is when it becomes really overwhelming, and it's just so easy to throw your hands up in the air, give up, and go, just going to sell it as it is. Who cares? And that's when
and we've seen that, haven't we? Like, I think there's been so many examples of people renovating where they've got great ideas. And the thing about renovating, and this sort of comes into the emotional side of things, is, you're at a point where it goes backwards before it goes forwards. So you're basically you're knocking walls out, or you're stripping a place back, and it starts to look really ordinary. And I think that's when people start to think, this is too hard. And I'm going to use Moggy as an example. We did that renovation in Magnolia, and there was a stump that was just sagging a bit in the front corner. It was the only one in the whole house. And he's like, "Do you think I should do it?" I was like, "Absolutely, you got to do it. You got to fix it because that's going to be an issue from a buyer." He's like, "Oh, it's going to cost."
There's a crack in the plaster, wasn't there?
No, I think it was dropping down, and once he rang me because he got stuck into me because it was sagging down that much that once it got lifted up, obviously once the foundations come back to where they were, it cracked his mantelpiece.
Oh, the mantelpiece, that's right.
Yeah, the famous mantelpiece, and he lost his banana, and this is too hard, and he became emotional, and it was hilarious because. Obviously, when you're fixing one thing, it might have an effect on another, and this was a great example. And I was like, just need to relax, just fix the mantelpiece. It was really simple. Probably not at that particular time because the place was a mess. It wasn't looking like it was supposed to at that point, and it was because and this was the middle of winter. They were renovating. They were going there every night. It was miserable, and it would have been a drag because they got businesses, they work hard, Sorry?
Little kids,
dragging
them around.
And then when that mantelpiece cracked, he lost it, and emotional. And we all see it. Everyone's done it. But from once we got to the point of the market, that stump wasn't an issue, and that would have been an issue. Now, stumps are always an issue for a buyer. If there's
absolutely
buyer feels like there's an issue with the foundations, and it starts with the bottom, then potentially that's going to be an issue for. That's going to cause other problems, and they freak out. They're more likely to walk away from a deal because they're not sure on the structural integrity of a home. So that was one emotional scenario that I just said.
And in the grand scheme of things, like he probably looks back on it now and goes, "It's just the tiniest little thing I needed to do." But I
wonder if he's watching. He should. He's got a call from Andy Whiteleg, so he must be watching.
That'd be cool because.
But I walked in thinking that this mantelpiece was in two. Like I thought the thing was going to be like falling apart. It was like a chunk about this big.
Yeah. But it is. Everything gets on top of you. The little things, and there's just you feel like it's never ending because you do something and then there's something else pops up, but it is ending. Like it does end. You do get to a point where it all comes together, and like you said before, it gets messy before it gets better, and that is the exact point when everyone gets spent. Like they're just so tired.
That's the point when you ring us up and we come around for a beer.
Absolutely.
Or a drink, because it is, you get to that low point just thinking this is going to take ages, but when you're at that low point, it's amazing how quickly you get to the point of photography. I always think that time when photography is getting done for a house going to market, the time where you see the relief, the happiness. Not obviously you get happier when the property sells. I remember that with your house in Henderson was a scenario where we were trying to guess what the value had gone for. We were thinking 240 originally. We thought I remember having a chat with the boys from Vision House when you were there saying, maybe 290 now, maybe that's a possibility, 290, 295.
Yeah,
we got 315, whatever. And that's extra 15, 20, 25 grand.
Just like that.
That's the difference.
Very first open with, multiple offers. So, it happens, it works. And that's what you got to try and remind yourself when you're in the depths of overwhelm and you're tired, you're spent, you're ready to give it in. Just, call us or call someone and give it, especially someone that's seen it from the start, like that they've seen what it was like, just to remind you how far you've actually come, because sometimes you can't see it. You're just like, I'm just, surrounded by mess and I'm had it. But, someone can remind you of how far you've actually come. And also as a really
take photos.
Oh yeah, take photos.
Take photos and videos.
And do you remember I said, Mark, when we were when I was doing Henderson, it was, I think there was one thing, and you go, what, you're so right about this. It's like, I just made $1,600 an hour by doing this. Yeah. It's that, it's, well, it probably wasn't that figure, but, but like it was in the thousands. But if you, put the time divided by the time, with the profit you make, and that's a really cool goal. Like just go, we're doing it for a reason. We're doing it because we want more money. We want the fast sale. And it's really easy, like especially going loggerheads with your partner, or it's just getting that emotional exhaustion.
For you guys, when you were renovating Henderson last week, for the ones that weren't watching last week, you sort of went through that process where I think for the first month, 6 weeks, not much happened. Like you were ticking away, but it was hard and I remember driving past plenty of times going, okay, the front step, because you fix the front step and do a few things. Yeah, it still hasn't happened. And I'll ring you up like, oh, we're going away for sport and kids and which is life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's, you went through that slump too, and then you just kicked into gear, didn't you?
Yeah, we did, definitely. And, we're newly together as well, newly bringing the kids together. And it was kind of, it was like life just got in the way. But it cost us money in the end. Like when I say cost us money, there was 4 months we were paying, Simon was paying his mortgage where we weren't making, anything from it. But obviously it all worked out in the end. But yeah, I would certainly not do that again. I wouldn't recommend dragging it out for 4 months. But yeah, like everyone just gets to that point. I think you have to celebrate the wins along the way. Celebrate, start with picking like your days, all right, and sticking to it. I think that's a good one. It's just like, okay, I'm actually going to talk to each other. I'm actually going to do all the skirting and architraves. I'm going to go over them, and that's what I'm painting today. And don't be distracted. Definitely do that. Then when you're finished at the end of the day, that's when you got your empowerment, because you've done it, you've accomplished it, and you don't feel like you're running around in circles, and celebrate it. We just did it. This is like potentially we're one day closer to making, gosh, Mark, like sometimes people have made $40,000-$50,000 more than they wanted to. Yeah. Remember that? Like
the other thing is to remember that some of these renovations aren't that significant. There was a property that I sold late last year, remember Rosalind's, and that was her renovation. She mainly done the renovation, and really that scenario was just finalising a few of those things, finishing off the things that probably needed to be done that they just hadn't got to yet.
Yeah.
The final piece of the puzzle there was you getting in there and I guess, just showing people how you could lay it out, because at that time she was in a position where she didn't want to buy furniture because they were about to jump in a big caravan and take off. So everyone's in a different scenario. They don't necessarily have the ability to not only just, spend the money on renovations, but then they've got to go and then style it themselves. She didn't want to do that. You came in, did your thing. That was a massive example of a scenario. And I remember coming in there after you'd finished, just go, it feels like a completely different home. This is a stunning home. It was beautiful before. Yeah. And just the styling and how it felt when you walked in. Well, that was, I think the top of the range was 370 or 375, and we sold it for over 400. And again, competition, that creating that dream for a buyer is what sets you apart from the rest. And that's you. If anyone's listening here or watching, the properties you fall in love with just by looking on realestate.com or Domain, or even social media. It comes through that photography. So it's it doesn't always need to be a ginormous renovation, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. And paint fixes everything. Paint is like putting on your makeup. It's just like, just gives you, all about that.
I should be doing this stuff. This light, it's not working for me. So I should have a makeup stylist. Mandy, where are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's like a makeover, but it's the easiest thing to give it a lift. Like painting is easy, and I think that's what she did. She, it was a really nice paint job, and and just some lightings. Those things are like they're small. They're not huge.
Yeah, and they're not that expensive. And that was a scenario where there was a rusty fence. So, spraying fence, they did that. Garden beds, we had the question last week about gardens, and it was a matter of just putting some bark chips out there. We did that. They did that process of starting at the front of the property and making sure everything was done, and they did everything. They did absolutely everything. So, the advice that we gave was they listened to it, and they massively got the reward. And it's a great feeling from my point of view when I can negotiate an outcome that's, potentially 20 or 30 or 40 grand more than we ever dreamed of. Yeah. It's something that, I don't take lightly. It can be a very emotional scenario, and it's a great scenario. Everyone everyone's happy. So the buyer gets the house of their dreams, exactly how they want it, and the vendor gets the result and reward for their effort.
Exactly. And then it's just, yeah, like you said, it's a win-win-win for everyone. The buyers won because, you know, they actually got what they wanted, and I love it. It's the elation, isn't it? It's really highly emotional. And that's where, yeah, just remember you're always going to get there. You're going to get that elation once, you know, when you're stuck in that rut and you're halfway through and you're ready to give up. Don't give up. It's, you know, push through that little bit more. Look after yourselves, like look after your body. And I've got my coach's hat on right now, but it's like, you know, just really look after yourself. Get the sleep, because the sleep was what drives you crazy. You know, if you've got lack of sleep, you know what it's like with a newborn. You know, you just, everything gets on top of you. Yeah. So, yes. So, you know, everything gets on top of you. It's the little things get on top of you. So make sure you get your sleep, make sure you look after your body. And then that way, you know, you're going to push through those moments a bit easier.
Yeah, great. We got any questions? I can't see, but
I can't see questions either.
Mandy?
I've got. Hey guys, sorry about that. We do have a question.
Yes.
Top of you, some little things get on top of you, so make sure you get your sleep, make sure you look after your body, and then that way.
Hang on, we're hearing some audio.
We do have a quick question. Do you have a renovation budget template or something similar that you can use that other people could use to share?
Every house is different, but you know, certainly, like I have got a styling template that, you know, that it's like a shopping list, but I can definitely develop one. That's probably a good thing that we can put in, Mandy, because it's really easy to do. The only thing is it's kind of
case by case,
but you know, if you just want a template that, you know, you can put your own thing in, and it's really easy to make up, we can definitely send that through, and can opt in for that through Mark's page, and it's it'd be really easy.
I think the budget would be, I think the budget would be similar. You'd work on similar percentages, but it all comes down to your starting value, what your house is worth now. Again, mentioned it last week. What you want to put into it, what you can afford to put into the renovation, and then obviously making sure that whatever that amount is that you're not getting to a point where it's more than what it's worth, that overcapitalizing. So case by case, area by area, location by location.
Yes, that's important as well.
Yeah, and you know, you've got completely different houses out there. You've got older brick veneers, you've got new brick veneers, you've got older Conite homes, weatherboard. You've got homes that ooze character, and I'll go back to Moggy and Critter's house, ooze so much character. It looked beautiful. The emotion went through with that auction. You know, the auction process there was crucial to getting a high price, and the, you know, you know by when your open inspections are getting 30, 40, 50 people through the homes, it looks good. People like it. So, you know, it's case by case. You've got to. You wouldn't just apply one formula to each house, and it's just important to get that advice.
Yep, absolutely. Get the advice, because there's some things that just don't need doing. You don't need to overcapitalize, like we said last week. But I mean, I guess a generic template to put all the things that you could require, I guess, that would be a bit difficult, because it might be a little bit misleading as well, so that, you know, you'd think that you have to get these things, but you don't really need to. But
I've looked at two different houses this week as an example. One was an area that the ceiling wasn't as high. You know, you might, you know, we've got when I sit down with a client and talk about the value of their house, we look at their neighbourhood, and we look at exactly what the other properties are selling for. You know, and typically you might have one neighbourhood that's, you know, it doesn't go over 250. You have a lot of, and then you might go to another neighbourhood that's potentially a lot of the properties drop in 250 to 5, but not higher. And then you might have a completely other neighbourhood that it's 250 to 5, but you get plenty of houses that can go to 5, 6, 7. You know, I had one appraisal that I said I wouldn't spend any more money. They were thinking about doing a built-in robe and a few things. And I just said where they were at that time, I just said probably leave it, don't spend any more money. Whereas the very next house I went to that same day was definitely do that, because your ceiling's a lot higher. Definitely do. And I was thinking about doing a few other little finishing touches that probably weren't a necessity, but they might be that clincher to getting a deal across the line and getting that buyer to fall in love with it. So similar questions, different areas, two different answers is kind of,
yeah. So
we've got another question. Would you recommend adding a shed during your renovation, or is that an area that adds minimal value to a property?
Sheds are a massive win. The thing with a shed, it's a big outlay, right? You've got to spend potentially $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 of your own money to put it into a property. So if you're about to put on a house on the market without a shed, okay, not everyone wants a shed. Most men want a shed, but it really, again, depends on each house. If you have to outlay another $25,000 to $30,000 or even more to put a shed there to sell it, then maybe you might get your money, but you probably would get your money back. If it's not a big deal for someone to buy, a similar thing with a pool, you know, it's not a big deal when someone buys a home, they can then go, okay, well, there's a spot for a shed. I want a shed. There's enough room. I'll go put one there. So it might be, you need to ensure that what you're doing, where you're spending your money, you're going to get a return on that investment. Yet it might clinch you a buyer that wants a shed, but it's not going to make you an extra $25,000 or $30,000. So I'd be putting the money into the things that matter. If they want to do those things, if they're going to spend another 10 years in this house, then I'd leave it up to the buyer.
Yeah.
Maybe a garden shed, different, but not a big shed.
Yeah, garden shed. I was going to suggest that.
Yeah.
Another question with the motivation, what are your tips and tricks around keeping motivation alive when you're doing renovations?
Play the tunes.
Yeah, I guess it's the high energy stuff. Is like really knowing what works for you. You know, if you need to have people around you to support and encourage you, definitely use them. You know, get people around. If you think that they're more of a hindrance, that they will bring you down some and, you know, add to the stresses, then definitely don't have them. Like, just do it on your own. Because high music, you know, keep reminding yourself that you're actually going to earn, hopefully, potentially, you know, $1,500 an hour while you're doing this, while you're putting the tiles up, while you're breaking, you know, the tiles off the walls. Just really just know what works for you to keep you like your high energy. If the things that bring you down, that you know that brings you down, just stay away, stay clear from that. And I think if you've got your real estate agent that is a highly motivated real estate agent that's quite amazing with you know, keeping your spirits high, get them coming around every week or 2 weeks and say, hey, come check out what I've done, have a look what I've done, and their encouragement will spur you on as well.
I think 100% comes down to about that structure. You know, there's always going to be things that come up with a renovation where, you know, a spanner gets thrown in the works and, you know, you find an issue and it has to be resolved. Always happens. So you always have to have that element of expecting that there's maybe a 10% blowout, not just to the budget, but also to the workload. You know, you've got to go in there understanding that's probably going to happen. Doesn't happen, you have a win. If it does happen, you expect it. You don't sort of lose the plot. Prepared. You know, and sort of get down on about the fact that there's another issue. You just go, and it sucks, but at the end of the day, you push on. So I think if you've got a really good structure, but when I did my recent renovation, there's heaps of issues, and one of them was when we pulled the wall, a main wall out, the actual power board, all the wires weren't sitting in there properly from when it was built, and it cost an extra probably $5,000 with regards to getting that whole new power board rebuilt and restructured. We didn't budget for that. It was an issue. I thought Andy was joking when he told me that this was happening, but it was true. It was a shocker, but it was something that I wasn't prepared for. But, you know, it's got to be done. There was no going forward without getting it fixed. So, yeah, I think you just got to expect that there's going to be problems. It's going to take time. But if you're really prepared yourself, you know who your tradies are, you know what they're going to do, and you know, I guess, rough timelines and stick to the process, I think you'll come through it fine.
Absolutely.
But getting advice, get the advice from Shona. That's my tip.
And yourself. But
Yeah.
it's definitely, you really got to have that strategy and be prepared. Add on your 10% if you can, just so you're prepared for those little bits and pieces that could potentially cost you a little bit more. And don't sweat the small stuff if you can. It's going to happen. You're renovating, you've decided to renovate, so you kind of have to take on board any issues that come up. It's kind of, it's not like building a brand new house where you've got a builder to just go and visit occasionally and see what they're up to. This is all on you now. So really just make sure that you're just like really prepared. You know what it's about. You've chosen it, so let's go.
Any more?
No, that's it. Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Just before we conclude, just for those wondering with regards to the market, just a bit of a snapshot of where it's at the moment. Every day I'm getting asked about, because the media keep talking about whether the market's going to drop to 30%. Right now, some of the listings that we had in March before all this went down, that didn't sell before or during COVID, that are now selling now, are selling at the prices that we talked about back in March or Feb. So that's a really good sign on the values. But I've just got some stats on, and there's a common theme across the nation at the moment. Listings are down. So if there's anyone there that's sort of thinking about getting their house on the market, but not sure, thinking they might wait 6 months, it's all a supply demand thing. We've listed 19 properties, which is not much, this month. Again, common theme across the Ray White network, across Australia, other agencies here locally. But what we've had 209 private inspections with buyers, which is an insane amount of inspections.
Wow.
We're getting, just in the last couple of weeks, we're getting an average of 4.5 buyers to our open inspections, which is not too dissimilar to what we were getting, back before COVID, I guess we can call it. I think maybe it might have been an average of 5, but in reality, these average of 4.5 buyers, they're buyers. They're not often they're not tire kickers. And like I said at the start of it, there's a lot of new buyers coming to the market, which is a really good sign for the next few months. Offers, we've had 62 offers on our properties, which is a lot. And we've sold 22 properties, and there's probably going to be, we've got 4 days left in the month. I know myself, and talking to a few of the other guys in the office, I think that there'll probably be another 6 to 10 sell this month, with multiple offers from different buyers on different properties. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's particularly the inspections. Like, we've had to revert to that because of the opens more so, but there's every day, it's multiple inspections with buyers, which is very good sign.
So really, like, for the real estate industry, like, COVID was almost like just press pause. And now
I think so, yeah.
Press play, and it's just come, it's where it's left off.
I remember early on, I was talking to someone at home. This was early days before Easter, maybe early April. I was like, I'm fine if it's May. If it goes through to August, September, then it's a concern for the industry. Me individually is one thing, but for the industry itself. But I think the biggest thing is, we're back into it only really 6 weeks later. I think that, you're right, pause. We saw buyers start to come back into the market more so late April, slowly, and then now they're rolling back in really quickly, which is exciting. And I've had a fair few people, now it's only a proposed $50,000 building grant, but I've had a fair few people are going to jump on land just as okay, if I've got land that comes in, I'm ready to go. So that's really interesting, just ringing up saying, if you've got land, let me know, and watch this space, because I do.
Oh,
on that topic,
I've got a good subdivision coming up.
Woohoo!
So,
on that topic, we've actually got another question. I just saw the government is discussing giving 40K to new builds. Do you think this will flood the market and lower home values, or do you think this proposition won't go through?
It's a proposed thing at the moment. I think the government, I'm not a politician by any means, but I think the government are trying to stimulate the economy, because real estate is, the income that they receive from real estate is a big part of their tax or their income, their budget for every year. So I think that it was always going to be something that they would, create to get that motivation back with people buying. So I don't know whether it's going to happen. Speculation at the moment. They'll have to go through a bit of a process. It won't happen soonish. They do have a cap. They're suggesting they'll have a cap on the amount of people that can do that. There's only so many builders in Mildura. And there's only so much land at the moment. So therefore, yes, you might get a lot of people going to that building scenario, but it is a first homeowners grant. So I think your current families, retirees, they're still a big part of the market and they're your biggest part of the market actually that buy your established stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's it. We haven't got any more questions.
Okay, cool. All right. So thanks for jumping on, whoever's jumped on. And if you are watching the replay and you want to be notified for future discussions, they're kind of like a session that we're giving out every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Just put notify me in the comments and we'll hook you up with that. Have you got anything else to add, Mark?
Not really. What are we talking about next week?
What are we talking about next week?
I don't know. Mandy might know. It'll be something good, I'm sure. But
yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
If anyone...
Talking about when you're thinking about flipping, what to do and when. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yep, and there's still good opportunities in that space. So, particularly now, given the market's starting to kick again. So, it'd be another good topic. But if anyone has any questions, I actually had a lot of people respond to a lot of the stuff we spoke about last week.
Awesome.
Which is a great sign because people are obviously wanting to know a lot of the answers to this stuff. So, and particularly the overcapitalizing scenario, and not knowing how much money to put into a renovation is a scary thing for a lot of people. And that's that's the feel I got from a lot of the questions. And I caught up with a fair few people last week or during the last week. So
yeah.
But if anyone has any questions, sing out through social media, give us a phone call. Happy to chat.
Absolutely, because you might not even be considering, or you weren't considering it before, and then all of a sudden we've sparked some motivation and inspiration for you. So hopefully we can help you out with that. And because I definitely know that I was talking to a lady that's got an investment property she's been sitting on for 10 years, and she goes, I wasn't thinking about selling it, but yeah, you know what, it's probably a good time. So, it's cool if we can motivate people and inspire people to get some really cool moving on with their next chapters, make some money in a time like this. Would be awesome.
It might not be till next year too. It might be a discussion now for next year or for whenever. So I think that's the key here. If you start that, if you're thinking about it and you want to see if it's viable, then to start the discussion now. If it pays off, and you start to get those renovating juices going, it might be that it doesn't happen to the end of the year, but you want to really get the ball rolling if you do.
Absolutely. Time flies, as we know, for sure.
Really
all right. Year. Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for jumping on.
Hey, guys.
Yep, we'll catch you next Tuesday. Thanks, Mark. See you.
See you, Shanna.